A murder convict in the United States receives an unexpected reprieve in the most unusual way, as a planned execution goes awry and suddenly raises serious questions about how capital punishment is being carried out. It is not a court ruling but a botched lethal injection attempt that effectively frees the convict from that particular execution date, forcing officials to halt the procedure and reconsider how, or even whether, to proceed.
Under Tennessee law, witnesses do not see the IV insertion. However, the witness room is adjacent to the execution chamber where it happens. We could hear some of what was happening. We heard his attorney at one point ask someone if they were qualified, and the person snapped back that they were qualified, and someone who else said, "Just do your job."
Death row turns into a scene of chaos and bitter squabbling inside a Tennessee prison, as staff, lawyers, and observers grapple with the fallout of the failed execution and what it means for the inmate's fate. Witnesses have revealed how officials once again failed to properly administer the lethal dose, describing in disturbing detail the repeated mistakes and confusion that turned a scheduled execution into a disturbing spectacle. Tennessee prison officials aborted an attempt to execute a man convicted of multiple murders, abruptly halting the procedure after repeated failures in the death chamber raised serious ethical and procedural concerns. Prison authorities were unable to find a suitable vein for lethal injection for Tony Carruthers, struggling repeatedly with the medical procedure as the condemned inmate lay restrained and waiting on the gurney. Carruthers was taken to the execution chamber at a maximum security prison on May 21st, where the state had scheduled his death after years of legal battles and appeals. Officials spent more than an hour trying to establish and fall line, repeatedly attempting insertions as the tension in the chamber grew and witnesses watched the ordeal unfold. The Tennessee Department then struggled to establish a backup line required under execution protocol, further compounding the problems and making it impossible to proceed according to the prescribed procedures. With staff unable to meet those requirements, Carruthers' execution was ultimately called off and he was returned to his cell on death row, leaving his legal status unchanged but his execution indefinitely postponed. Carruthers has now become the 7th man in the United States to survive his execution date after a botched lethal injection, adding his case to a growing list that has intensified scrutiny of capital punishment practices. Subsequently, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee granted Carruthers a 1-year reprieve from execution, temporarily shielding him from another attempt while officials review what went wrong and decide the next steps. Matt Wells, Reprieve's U.S. Deputy Director, said, and I quote, "Lethal injection is touted as a humane, medical method of execution. Bloody and prolonged execution attempts like this one expose the gruesome reality," unquote.
I'm here on the grounds of the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville, Tennessee. I was here as a witness for the execution of Tony Carruthers. However, the execution has been called off. Carruthers was set to be executed today by lethal injection for the 1994 kidnapping and murder of 3 people in Memphis, Tennessee. We understand that there was a problem with inserting the IVs, and that is the reason for the reprieve. He's been given a 1-year reprieve by the governor. Under Tennessee law, witnesses do not see the IV insertion. However, the witness room is adjacent to the execution chamber where it happens. We could hear some of what was happening. We heard his attorney at one point ask someone if they were qualified, and the person snapped back that they were qualified, and someone who else said, "Just do your job." We heard some grunting and some noises that sounded like pain. We just spoke with the attorney, Tony Carruthers' attorney, Maria De Liberato, who is an ACLU attorney who was in the room during that IV insertion, and she said that Mr. Carruthers was in a lot of pain. They attempted to insert an IV in his arm. When that didn't work, in his foot, in his neck, and then a central line in his chest. She said there was a lot of blood, it was more than an hour they spent trying to insert the IVs, and eventually they gave up. She also said that in previous litigation, the doctor who was trying to insert the central line has testified that he was not qualified to do such. So it's possible that may have played a role in this reprieve, but we just don't know at this point.
25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.